the wind was always cruel at the wall. It did not care who you were, bastard or king. It cut your face the same way. Jon Snow had grown used to that kind of honesty. Cold was simple. Cold did not lie. But lies were warmer. They wrapped around you. They made you believe you belonged somewhere you never truly did. Jon stood alone on the top of the wall, looking over the endless white north. The world stretched quiet and empty, yet his mind felt louder than the howling wind. In his hand, folded so many times the edges were soft, was a letter. He had read it 100 times. He knew every word. Still, he unfolded it again. It spoke of his mother, not the lie he had lived with, not the shameful story of some unknown woman. It spoke of Lyanna Stark. It spoke of Rhaegar Targaryen. It spoke of a secret marriage, a promise made in tears and blood, and at the center of it all, it spoke of him, Aegon Targaryen. Jon closed his eyes. He remembered Ned Stark's quiet face, the way his supposed father had always looked at him, not with shame, but with something heavier, protection, fear, guilt. Jon understood it now. Ned had not been protecting a bastard. He had been protecting a bastard. He had been protecting a prince of dragon blood. He laughed softly, but there was no joy in it. If the men of the Night's Watch knew, would they still call him brother, or would they see him as something else? A threat? A southern king with a claim to the Iron Throne? He had taken vows. He had sworn to hold no lands, father no children, wear no crowns. But what if a crown had been his since birth? The thought burned in his chest. He had spent his life trying to prove he was worthy of the Stark name, worthy of respect, worthy of love. All the while, he had been something more and something far more dangerous. A Targaryen. Fire and blood. He did not feel like fire. He felt like snow. Quiet. Careful. Always watching. But maybe fire did not always roar. Maybe sometimes it waited. Behind him, boots crunched against ice. Jon did not turn right away. "You look like a man carrying the weight of the world," Sam's voice said gently. Jon folded the letter again and slipped it inside his coat. "Maybe I am." Sam moved beside him, breathing hard from the climb. "You've been different. Distant. Even for you." Jon almost smiled. "I didn't think that was possible." Sam studied his face carefully. Sam always saw more than he let on. Did something happen? Yes, Jon thought. Everything happened. He hesitated, then pulled the letter back out. His hand felt heavier than any sword he had ever carried. "If you learned your whole life was built on a lie, what would you do?" Sam blinked. "Depends on the lie. What if you weren't who you thought you were?" Jon asked quietly. "What if your name, your blood, your fate, all of it was wrong?" Sam swallowed. "Jon, what are you saying?" Jon looked back at the endless north. The White Walkers were still out there. Death was still marching. The world was still on the edge of ruin. And here he was, worrying about crowns and bloodlines. But bloodlines had started wars before. "I'm not Ned Stark's son," he said finally. The words felt strange in the air. "I never was." Sam stared at him. "I don't understand. My mother was Lyanna Stark. My father was Rhaegar Targaryen." The wind seemed to go silent for a moment. Sam's face went pale. "That would mean you're—" Jon nodded slowly. "The rightful heir to the Iron Throne." The words tasted bitter. Sam shook his head as if trying to wake from a dream. "Does anyone else know?" "Just you," Jon said. "For now." Sam ran a trembling hand through his hair. "This changes everything." "That's what I'm afraid of," Jon replied. He had fought wildlings. He had died and come back. He had faced betrayal and murder, but this felt worse. This was not an enemy he could stab. This was something inside him. If Daenerys Targaryen learned the truth, what then? Would she see him as family or as a rival? Would she feel betrayed that he had a stronger claim? Would she believe he hid it to take her throne? Jon did not want a throne. He wanted peace. He wanted a world where children did not freeze in the dark. But the world rarely gave men what they wanted. "What will you do?" Sam asked quietly. Jon looked south. Beyond the wall, beyond Winterfell, beyond King's Landing. Somewhere out there, dragons flew. Somewhere out there, queens dreamed of power. "I don't know," he admitted. "If I say nothing, I live as Jon Snow. If I speak the truth, I become something else." "Maybe you were always something else," Sam said. Jon thought of Ghost, of the direwolf who had followed him through death itself, a white wolf among darker fur, different, alone, yet still part of the pack. Was he a wolf pretending to be a dragon, or a dragon raised among wolves? The truth could tear the seven kingdoms apart. Lords who hated Targaryens would rise, others would kneel, armies would move, blood would spill, all because of a name. And yet, part of him felt anger, a quiet anger that had lived inside him since childhood. The stares, the whispers, the word bastard thrown like a stone. He had suffered for a lie. If the truth came out, the world would have to see him differently. But would they respect him or fear him? Jon tightened his jaw. "I need time," he said. "Time to think, time to decide who I am." Sam nodded slowly. "Whatever you are, you're still you." Jon hoped that was true, because if the dragon blood inside him ever truly woke, he did not know what kind of man he would become. And far to the south, beyond snow and ice, the game for the throne was already in motion. Jon Snow had just become its most dangerous piece. Jon did not sleep that night. The wind outside his chamber scratched against the wooden walls like restless fingers, but the real noise was inside his head. Every memory felt different now. Every word Ned Stark had ever spoken to him carried a new meaning. "You may not have my name, but you have my blood." Jon had always thought that was kindness. Now he understood it was truth, just not in the way he believed. He stared at the small flame burning in the corner of the room. Fire. He had never been afraid of it. Even as a boy, when others stepped back from it, he would watch it closely. It had always felt familiar, alive. Was that the dragon in him? He flexed his fingers slowly. They looked the same, calloused from swords, scarred from battles. They did not look like a king's hands. And yet somewhere in the south, Daenerys Targaryen sat on Dragonstone, believing she was the last dragon, believing the throne was her destiny. Jon's jaw tightened at the thought. If she knew the truth, what would she see when she looked at him? A nephew or a threat? Before dawn, he made his decision. He would ride south, not for a crown, not for power, for truth. The next morning, the yard was busy with men training. Steel clashed against steel. The Night's Watch moved like a machine hardened by survival. Jon stood in the center, watching them. These were his brothers. He had bled with them, died for them. He owed them honesty. He called for a meeting. They gathered in the common hall, faces serious. Tormund stood near the front, arms crossed, red beard, wild as ever. Sam lingered at Jon's side. Jon took a slow breath. "I'll be leaving the wall." Murmurs spread immediately. "For how long?" someone shouted. "I don't know," Jon answered honestly. Tormund stepped forward. "You're our leader. You can't just walk away." Jon held his gaze. "The wall will stand. The watch will endure. But there are matters in the south that may decide the fate of all of us." "What matters?" another voice demanded. Jon hesitated only a second. He would not tell them everything. Not yet. The fewer who knew, the safer they were. "There are truths about my birth," he said carefully. "Truths that could change alliances. We will need allies for the war to come." The hall grew quieter. Tormund studied him, eyes narrowing. "You're hiding something." "Maybe," Jon admitted. "But I swear this, I do this for the living." Silence followed. Then slowly Tormund nodded. "You come back." "I will." But even as he said it, Jon felt the weight of uncertainty. The South was not like the Wall. It was filled with politics, whispers, poison hidden in smiles. He had survived swords and ice. He was not sure how well he would survive courtiers and crowns. By midday, he rode through the gates. Ghost followed beside him, white fur bright against the snow. The dire wolf moved silently, as if sensing the shift in the world. As the wall disappeared behind them, Jon felt something strange, not fear, but anticipation, like the first moment before battle when your blood begins to move faster. Maybe dragons did feel like this. Days later, the cold slowly faded as they rode south. Snow became frost. Frost became mud. The world gained color again. Villages appeared. Farmers stared as he passed. He had always been Jon Snow to them, a northern bastard in black. What would they see if they knew he carried the blood of the Mad King? The blood that had burned cities. Would they trust him, or would they remember stories of wildfire and screams? One evening, as the sun bled red across the sky, Jon felt it, a deep vibration in the air. Ghost stopped first, ears sharp. Then he heard it, a roar, not thunder, not wind, a dragon. Jon's heart pounded. He had seen them once before from a distance, but this sound was closer, stronger. It seemed to echo inside his chest. He dismounted slowly, eyes scanning the horizon. There, far above, a massive shadow crossed the clouds. Wings spread wide, scales catching the last light of day. Drogon. Jon did not know how he knew the dragon's name, but he felt it the same way he felt the heat rising in his veins. The dragon circled once, then lower, closer. Every instinct told him to run. Horses nearby panicked. A farmer screamed in the distance. But Jon stood still. The dragon descended in a rush of wind and dust, landing in an open field ahead. The ground trembled beneath its weight. Black scales, red eyes, smoke curling from nostrils. Drogon stared at him, not past him, at him. Jon felt exposed, as if the creature could see straight through skin and bone into blood itself. Ghost growled softly but did not attack. Jon took a slow step forward. Easy, he murmured, though he wasn't sure if he spoke to the dragon or himself. Drogon's head lowered slightly. The air grew hot. Jon felt it on his face, but he did not burn. He did not flinch. For a long moment, they simply looked at each other. And then something shifted. The dragon tilted its head, almost curious. Jon raised his hand slowly. He did not know why he did it. He did not think. He just moved. His fingers brushed against black scales. They were warm, not painful. Warm like a hearth fire in winter. Drogon did not roar. He did not attack. Instead, he exhaled slowly, smoke drifting into the air. Jon's heart hammered in his chest. The stories were true. Dragons knew their own. In that quiet field, under a bleeding sky, Jon Snow felt the truth settle fully inside him. He was not just a wolf. He was not just a man of the Night's Watch. He was blood of the dragon. And somewhere, not far away, Daenerys Targaryen had just felt her dragon answer to another. The moment did not last long. A sharp whistle cut through the air from the hill behind Drogon. The dragon's head snapped upward, wings stretching wide in warning. Jon stepped back slowly, hand lowering, heart still pounding like a war drum inside his chest. Then he saw her. Silver hair caught in the wind, dark riding clothes, eyes like pale fire. Daenerys Targaryen rode down the slope with two Dothraki riders behind her, their expressions hard and suspicious. When she reached the field, she dismounted without breaking eye contact with Jon. Drogon moved slightly, positioning himself between them at first. Protective. Then something strange happened. The dragon shifted aside, not fully, but enough. Daenerys noticed. Her eyes narrowed. "You touched him," she said, her voice calm but sharp underneath. "Most men would be ash." Jon met her gaze. "I didn't ask him to let me." Drogon gave a low rumble, almost thoughtful. Daenerys stepped closer, studying Jon like he was a puzzle she didn't like. "Who are you?" He could lie. He could say he was no one. But something inside him, that quiet, steady fire, told him this was the moment. "My name is Jon Snow," he said first. Then he paused. The next words felt heavier. But that's not the name I was born with. Her expression changed slightly. Not fear. Not yet. Curiosity. Go on, she said. Jon felt the wind brush against his face. He had faced armies, faced death, but this felt more dangerous. My mother was Lyanna Stark. Daenerys's posture stiffened. My father was Rhaegar Targaryen. Silence fell over the field. The Dothraki shifted uneasily. Drogon's red eyes flickered between them. Daenerys let out a slow breath, almost like a laugh, but there was no humor in it. Many men have claimed to be Targaryens. Most were liars. I'm not lying, Jon said simply. She stepped closer, studying his face more carefully now, as if looking for something familiar. And you expect me to believe that my brother had a secret son who just survived? I don't expect anything, Jon replied. I only speak the truth. Her jaw tightened. If what you say is true, you would have a claim. I don't want a claim. Her eyes flashed. That doesn't matter. The lords of Westeros would care. They always care about blood. There it was, the tension beneath her calm voice, not fear exactly, but threat. Jon understood it. All her life she had been told she was the last dragon, the rightful queen, the one who would take back what was stolen. And now here stood a man with Stark honor in his bones and Targaryen blood in his veins. A man the North might follow, a man the realm might prefer. I didn't come for your throne, Jon said quietly. She circled him slowly, like Drogon had done earlier. Then why tell me? Because secrets start wars, he answered. I've seen enough of those. Daenerys stopped in front of him, close enough that he could see the storm building in her eyes. If this is true, why were you raised as a bastard? To protect me, Jon said. From Robert Baratheon, from anyone who would fear a Targaryen heir. At the name of Robert, her lips pressed thin. She believed him. Not fully, but enough. Drogon moved closer again, lowering his head near Jon's shoulder. The heat radiating from him felt almost protective now. Daenerys noticed that too. They sense their own blood, she murmured. I've always believed that. Jon looked at the dragon's dark scales. Then you know I'm not lying. Her silence was confirmation. But belief did not mean acceptance. You understand what this means, she said finally. If the world knows, some will call you king. I will refuse. She gave a small, almost bitter smile. You think it's that simple? Men die for crowns they don't even wear. Jon thought of Ned Stark, of honor, of how honor had cost him his head. I won't fight you, Jon said firmly. Not for a throne. She searched his face again, looking for ambition, for greed, for hunger. She found none. That unsettled her more. You have the North behind you, she said. You have a name people trust. If you stood beside me as my equal, she did not finish the sentence. But the meaning was clear. Alliance, marriage, power joined, not divided. Jon felt the weight of it. Not just political, personal, dangerous. I fight for the living, he said carefully. The dead are coming. That matters more than any throne. Her expression shifted slightly, frustration mixing with reluctant respect. You sound like my brother never did. That's because I'm not Viserys. A faint smirk touched her lips despite herself. The wind picked up again, silver hair whipping around her face. If what you say is true, she said slowly, then you are Aegon Targaryen. The name hung between them. It felt strange hearing it spoken aloud. Jon felt it settle into his bones. Not like a crown, more like a burden. But understand this, Daenerys continued, her voice colder now. I have spent my entire life fighting to reclaim what was stolen from my family. I will not surrender it easily. I'm not asking you to. Drogon suddenly spread his wings, letting out a powerful roar that shook the trees. The sound echoed across the fields like a warning to the world itself. Two dragons now, not one. Daenerys mounted Drogon in one smooth motion. Before taking off, She looked down at Jon one last time. "Come to Dragonstone," she said. "We will speak again. About truth. About loyalty. About the future." Her eyes hardened slightly. "And about which of us the realm will choose." With that, Drogon leapt into the sky, wings beating like thunder. Jon stood there long after she disappeared into the clouds. He had told the truth, and instead of peace, he had ignited something far more dangerous. This was no longer just about identity. It was about power. And power never rested quietly between dragons. The sea was rough the day Jon arrived at Dragonstone. Dark waves slammed against black cliffs as if the ocean itself was angry. The castle rose from the rock like something carved by fire and shadow. Dragon statues watched from every corner, their stone eyes cold and judging. Jon had never liked castles much. Winterfell had felt like home. This place felt like a warning. As his ship docked, he could already see unsullied soldiers lined in perfect rows, silent, disciplined, watching him like he was either a guest or a prisoner. Ghost stepped off the ship first, white fur bright against the black stone. The soldiers stiffened slightly at the sight of the direwolf. Jon followed. He did not wear a crown. He did not wear gold. Just dark northern leathers and a sword at his side. He had come as himself, but whispers were already spreading. A Targaryen, a rival, a king. Inside the castle hall, the air was warmer than outside. Torches burned along the walls, casting long shadows. The throne at the far end was not the Iron Throne that still sat in King's Landing, but it was carved with dragons curling around its arms. Daenerys stood before it, not sitting. She wore no smile. To her right stood Tyrion Lannister, eyes sharp and thoughtful. Varys lingered in the shadows, quiet as ever. Grey Worm stood like stone. Jon walked forward alone. The sound of his boots echoed too loudly. "You came," Daenerys said. "You asked." Her gaze lingered on him, measuring every movement. "Have you told anyone else?" "No." Tyrion raised an eyebrow slightly. "Told anyone what exactly?" Jon looked at Daenerys. This was her court, her decision. She hesitated only a moment. "He claims to be the son of Rhaegar Targaryen." The room shifted instantly. Tyrion blinked slowly. Varys leaned forward ever so slightly. Grey Worm's hand tightened on his spear. Jon did not look away. "And do you believe him?" Tyrion asked carefully. Daenerys answered without breaking eye contact with Jon. "The dragons do." That caused silence. Varys spoke softly. "Dragons are not known for political judgment." "No," Daenerys replied. "But they know blood." Tyrion studied Jon now with new interest. "If this is true, your claim would be stronger than hers." Jon felt the tension tighten like a drawn bowstring. "I don't want to claim," he repeated. Varys gave a faint, almost sad smile. "Few rulers begin by wanting it." Jon's jaw tightened. "I have fought all my life to protect people, not to rule them. And yet," Varys said gently, "the best rulers are often those who do not crave power." Daenerys' eyes flickered at that. There it was, the real danger. It was not that Jon demanded the throne. It was that he didn't. Tyrion stepped forward. "Forgive my bluntness, but if this becomes known, the lords of Westeros may rally behind you. You are half Stark. The North loves you. You have honor. A good story." Jon almost laughed. "A good story? The hidden prince raised as a bastard," Tyrion said. "It has a certain poetry." "I'm not a poem," Jon replied. "I'm a man. And men start wars," Grey Worm said flatly. The room fell quiet again. Daenerys descended the steps slowly until she stood only a few feet from Jon. "If we fight each other, Cersei wins." At the name Cersei, Tyrion's face darkened. Jon nodded. "Then we don't fight." "It may not be up to us," Daenerys said quietly. That truth hung heavy. Varys stepped forward now, hands folded calmly. "There is another option." Daenerys' eyes narrowed slightly. "Say it. A union," Varys said. "Two Targaryens. United claim. No division." The word echoed louder than any sword clash. Union. Marriage. Alliance sealed by blood. Jon felt the weight of it instantly. Daenerys did not look shocked. She had already considered it. You would kneel, she said softly to Jon, publicly. Acknowledge me as queen. And privately? Jon asked. Her gaze held his. We rule together. Tyrion watched carefully, clearly seeing both the opportunity and the risk. Jon thought of the wall, of the dead marching, of the North that would never easily accept a southern queen, especially one with dragons. If he stood beside her, it might calm fears, or it might ignite them. And if I refuse? Jon asked. Daenerys' voice did not rise. It became colder. Then others will choose sides for us. There it was again, not threat, not exactly, but reality. Jon stepped closer so only she could hear his next words. I won't fight you for a throne, he said. But I won't lie to protect one either. Her eyes searched his face, looking for weakness. She found stubborn honesty instead. You're dangerous, she whispered. So are you. For a brief second, something softer flickered between them. Understanding, attraction, shared fire. Then it vanished beneath politics. Tyrion cleared his throat gently. There's also the matter of proof. Jon nodded. There are records. At the Citadel, witnesses who knew of Rhaegar's marriage. Varys' eyes gleamed. If confirmed, this will not stay secret long. Daenerys turned away, walking back toward the dragon-carved throne. She placed a hand on its arm but did not sit. All my life, she said quietly, I was told I was the last dragon, the chosen one, the rightful queen. Every step I've taken, every sacrifice, was for that belief. Jon said nothing. She looked back at him. And now you stand here, with Stark honor and Targaryen blood, the kind of ruler people love. There was pain in her voice now, not jealousy, fear of being replaced. I don't want to replace you, Jon said honestly. But you could, she replied. Outside, a dragon roared, this time not just Drogon, but another answering call. Two voices in the sky, two flames. The court felt smaller suddenly, like the world itself was narrowing toward a single choice, trust or rivalry. Daenerys straightened her shoulders. You will stay here, she decided, as my guest. Guest, not prisoner, but not free either. We will send for proof, she continued. Until then, your secret remains within these walls. Jon nodded once. As he turned to leave, he felt every pair of eyes following him. Hope, suspicion, calculation. The game had shifted. He had not asked to play. But now he stood at the center of it, and somewhere deep inside, beneath the honor and restraint, a small, quiet fire had begun to grow. Dragonstone was never quiet. Even at night, the castle seemed alive. The sea crashed endlessly below the cliffs. Wind moved through the dragon-shaped towers like whispers. And somewhere in the darkness, dragons breathed fire into the sky, their roars shaking the stone. Jon stood on a balcony overlooking the black water. Sleep would not come to him here. This place did not feel like Winterfell. It did not feel like the Wall. It felt like destiny waiting. Behind him, the doors opened softly. I thought I'd find you here, Daenerys said. He didn't turn immediately. I've never been good at sleeping in new places. She stepped beside him, resting her hands on the cold stone railing. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Below, the waves smashed violently against the rocks. You understand, she said quietly, that if this proof comes back true, everything changes. Yes, my allies will question me. Some may prefer you. I can refuse them. She looked at him then, really looked at him. You don't understand how power works in the South. Then help me understand. Her silver hair moved in the wind, catching moonlight like pale fire. Power is not just about what you want. It's about what others believe. If they believe you are the better ruler, they will push you forward, whether you agree or not. Jon thought of the North. He had never wanted to be king in the North either. They had chosen him anyway. You could deny your heritage, she continued. Jon's jaw tightened. Live another lie. It would protect peace. For how long? He asked. Until someone else discovers it? Secrets rot. They don't disappear. She didn't argue, because she knew he was right. A dragon roared overhead, circling in the night sky. This time it wasn't Drogon. It was Rhaegal. The green dragon swooped lower than usual, passing close to the balcony. Jon felt the rush of wind from its wings. Rhaegal slowed, hovered. His massive head turned slightly toward Jon. Daenerys noticed. Rhaegal had been named after her brother Rhaegar. The dragon's red-gold eyes locked onto Jon's face. Then slowly, deliberately, Rhaegal dipped his head. A gesture. Small, but clear. Daenerys' breath caught. Jon did nothing. He didn't reach out. He didn't move. But inside, something ancient stirred. A warmth in his chest that was not fear. Rhaegal let out a low rumble, not aggressive, almost welcoming. Then the dragon rose back into the sky. Silence followed. Daenerys stepped back slightly, shaken more than she wanted to admit. "They've never done that before," she whispered. Jon finally turned toward her. "Maybe they know something we're still trying to understand." Her eyes searched his face again, but this time there was no sharpness. Only confusion and something else. Loneliness. "All my life," she said softly, "I was alone. The last Targaryen. The last Targaryen. I built my strength on that truth." "You're not alone now," Jon replied without thinking. The words hung between them. Too personal. Too dangerous. Time equally. "If you stand beside me, not as a rival, but as blood, as family," she didn't finish. Jon knew what she meant. The idea of marriage had already been spoken in the council chamber. A union to unite claims, to stop division before it started. It made sense politically, but politics was rarely clean. "I won't pretend to be someone I'm not," Jon said quietly. "I won't become ruthless to protect power. And if mercy cost us everything?" she asked. He held her gaze. "Then we fight for what's right, not just what's ours." Her expression hardened slightly at that. She had burned cities to free slaves, crucified masters, used fire as justice. Jon saw the fire in her. She saw the restraint in him. Two Targaryens, but raised in different worlds. Footsteps interrupted them. Tyrion approached slowly, carrying a sealed scroll. His face was unusually serious. "A raven from the citadel," he said. The air shifted instantly. Daenerys took the scroll but did not open it right away. Her fingers tightened slightly around the parchment. Jon felt his heartbeat slow. This was it. Truth made ink. "Read it," he said. She hesitated, just for a second, then broke the seal. Her eyes scanned the words quickly at first, then slower. Then she stopped breathing. Tyrion stepped closer. "Your Grace?" She lowered the scroll slightly but did not look away from Jon. "It's confirmed," she said quietly. The words felt heavier than chains. "Rhaegar Targaryen annulled his marriage to Elia Martell," she continued. "He married Lyanna Stark in secret, a lawful union." Her voice grew colder with each word. "Their son, Aegon Targaryen, lives." Silence swallowed the balcony. The wind howled louder, as if the world itself reacted. Tyrion exhaled slowly. "Then the rumors will spread. It cannot be contained now." Daenerys finally looked up from the parchment. Her eyes were no longer confused. They were calculating. "You are the rightful heir," she said to Jon. He felt no joy, no triumph. "Only wait." "I never wanted it," he answered. "That doesn't matter," Tyrion said gently. Below them, another dragon roared, louder this time. Both Drogon and Rhaegal circled together in the sky. Two dragons, two heirs, one throne. Daenerys folded the parchment carefully. When she spoke again, her voice was steady, controlled. "The realm will hear of this soon enough," she said. "And when they do, they will expect an answer." She stepped closer to Jon. "We must decide now." Her eyes searched his. No softness left. "Are we allies or are we rivals?" The wind roared between them. And for the first time since learning the truth, Jon realized something terrifying. The real war might not be against the dead. It might be between dragon and dragon. Jon did not answer her right away. The sea below crashed harder, like it was impatient. The wind pulled at his coat, at her silver hair, at the silence between them, allies or rivals. He had faced that choice before in different forms, wildlings or watch, honor or survival, love or duty. This felt heavier. If we become rivals, Jon said slowly, the realm will bleed before the dead even reach it. Daenerys' eyes did not soften. And if we pretend this changes nothing, we lie to everyone. I'm not asking to pretend. Then, what are you asking? She pressed. He stepped closer, lowering his voice. Trust. She almost laughed, not in mockery, but disbelief. Trust built on a secret you kept from me? I didn't keep it from you. I only just learned. And yet you told your friend first. That struck deeper than she probably intended. Jon didn't deny it. I needed to be sure. Her jaw tightened. So did I. Tyrion cleared his throat carefully, sensing the fire building between them. If I may, the question is not simply who has the stronger claim. It's who the people will follow. Varys nodded slightly. The North loves him. The Riverlands respect the Stark name. Even some in the South might prefer a ruler raised away from madness. Madness. The word lingered like smoke. Daenerys heard it. So that is what you fear, she said quietly. That I will become my father. No one answered. That was answer enough. Her shoulders stiffened, but her voice stayed controlled. I freed slaves. I broke chains. I crossed the world to take back what was stolen. And no one doubts your strength, Jon said. But they doubt my blood, she replied sharply. He couldn't argue with that. The Targaryen name was fire and fear. Even if she had done good, people remembered the Mad King more clearly than her mercy. And what about you? She asked. Do you doubt me? Jon held her gaze. This was the real question. I believe you want to build a better world, he said honestly. But I've seen what power does to good people. Her expression flickered, anger and hurt mixing together. You think I would burn cities to keep a throne? I think, he said carefully, that when people feel something slipping away, they hold tighter. The wind seemed to stop for a heartbeat. She stepped closer, almost close enough to touch him. And you? She whispered. If the lords of Westeros kneel to you tomorrow, would you refuse them? He hesitated. That hesitation was small, but she saw it, because the truth was, he didn't know. He never wanted power, but if refusing it led to chaos, if stepping forward prevented war, duty had always guided him. Even when it cost him everything. I don't crave a crown, he said quietly, but I won't let the realm tear itself apart because of me either. That's not an answer, she said. It's the only honest one I have. A dragon's roar split the sky again, louder, closer. Drogon landed heavily in the courtyard below, fire flashing briefly from his mouth. Daenerys glanced toward the sound. He feels my anger, she said softly. Jon looked toward the sky as well. Rhaegal feels mine. Another roar answered, two flames echoing across Dragonstone. Tyrion stepped between them slightly. This tension will only grow once the news spreads. We must present unity. Immediately. Unity built on what? Daenerys asked coldly. On partnership, Tyrion said carefully. Not submission. She turned sharply toward him. You suggest I share my throne? I suggest, Tyrion replied, calm but firm, that two dragons ruling together are stronger than one, tearing the sky apart. Varys added quietly, the people fear division more than they fear dragons. Jon looked at her again. I don't want your throne, he repeated. If standing beside you prevents bloodshed, I will do it. And kneel? She asked. He paused. The image flashed in his mind, bending the knee publicly. Acknowledging her as queen, the North would not like it. But the North had chosen him because he protected them. If this protected them, Yes, he said finally. If it keeps the realm united against the real enemy, I will kneel. The words felt heavy, but they were true. Daenerys searched his face for pride, for resentment. She found none, only resolve. You would give up your claim so easily? She asked. It was never mine to begin with, he said. It belonged to a boy who grew up without knowing it. And now? Now I'm a man who knows what matters more than a chair made of swords. For the first time since the raven arrived, something softened in her expression. Not victory, not dominance. Respect. But respect did not erase fear. If you kneel, she said slowly, it must be done before witnesses, publicly, clearly. So there's no doubt, Jon said. So there's no challenge, she corrected. He nodded. Tyrion exhaled in quiet relief. Varys watched both of them carefully, as if memorizing every word for future strategy. Daenerys stepped closer again, lowering her voice so only Jon could hear. If you betray me, she said, not threatening but warning, I will burn everything that stands in my way. Jon did not flinch. If I ever believe you're becoming the thing people fear, he answered just as quietly, I won't stand by either. Their eyes locked. Fire and ice. Neither bowing, neither breaking, but choosing, for now, not to clash. Tomorrow, she said finally. Before the court. Jon nodded once. The decision was made. But as he turned to leave the balcony, he felt something uneasy settle in his chest. Kneeling would prevent one kind of war, but it would not silence whispers. It would not stop lords from wondering. It would not stop dragons from choosing. And deep down, Jon could not ignore one truth. He was giving up a crown for peace. But peace, built on fear, was fragile, and dragons were not meant to live quietly in the same sky forever. Morning came heavy over Dragonstone. The sky was gray, thick with clouds, like even the heavens were unsure of what would happen. Word had already spread through the castle. Servants whispered. Soldiers stood straighter. Lords who had arrived during the night now filled the great hall. They had heard the rumor. The hidden son of Rhaegar. Jon stood alone in a side chamber, staring at his reflection in a polished shield hanging on the wall. He looked the same. Dark hair, stark face, a faint scar above his brow. Nothing about him screamed king. Good, he thought. The door opened behind him. Tyrion entered quietly. You don't look like a man about to kneel away a crown, Tyrion said. I never wore one, Jon replied. Tyrion studied him carefully. Many would kill for what you're about to surrender. Jon met his eyes. Would you? Tyrion gave a faint smile. I've learned that crowns often come with sharp edges. A horn sounded from the hall. It was time. They walked together into the great chamber. The room was packed now, unsullied, lined to the walls. Dothraki stood near the back like silent wolves. Lords from the Reach and Stormlands watched with careful eyes. At the front stood Daenerys. She wore black and red, not soft silver, not gentle blue. Today she looked every bit the Dragon Queen. Beside her, a small table held the parchment from the Citadel, proof. The murmurs quieted as Jon entered. Every eye followed him, not as a bastard, not as a northern commander, but as something dangerous. Daenerys stepped forward. It has come to my attention, she began, her voice clear and strong, that Jon Snow is not the man we believed him to be. Silence fell thick. The Citadel has confirmed what was hidden for years. He is Aegon Targaryen, the lawful son of Rhaegar Targaryen and Lyanna Stark. Gasps filled the hall. Some faces showed shock, others calculation. Jon felt it instantly. The shift, the weighing of options in their minds. Half Stark, half Targaryen. Raised in honor, tempered in war. A better story than exile and fire, Daenerys continued. By blood and law he has a claim to the Iron Throne. That made the tension sharper. Several lords exchanged glances. One older lord from the Stormlands stepped forward slightly. Then, who sits the throne? The question was bold, dangerous. Daenerys did not answer immediately. Instead, she turned to Jon. This was the moment. Jon stepped forward slowly. His boots echoed across the stone floor. He could feel the room dividing already, some leaning toward her, some toward him. If he said nothing, chaos would begin right here. He stopped in front of her, looked out at the hall. Then he knelt. The sound of his knee hitting stone echoed louder than any dragon roar. "I am Aegon Targaryen by birth," he said clearly. "But I do not seek the throne." Whispers erupted. He kept speaking. "I have fought for the living. I have bled for the living. And I will not see the realm divided when darkness gathers beyond our walls." He lowered his head. "I bend the knee to Daenerys Targaryen, rightful queen of the Seven Kingdoms." The hall went silent again. Then slowly, carefully, Daenerys placed a hand on his shoulder. "Rise," she commanded. He stood. She turned back to the crowd. "There will be no division between us," she said firmly. "The blood of the dragon stands united." Some lords looked disappointed. Others relieved. Tyrion exhaled softly. Varys watched with unreadable eyes. But even as the hall slowly began to kneel and turn, Jon felt something else in the room. Doubt. Hidden. Quiet. Not everyone believed it would stay this simple. Because they had seen how the dragons reacted. They had seen Rhaegal's interest in him. They had seen Drogon circle twice last night. Outside, as if on cue, a dragon's roar split the sky. Then another answered. Two roars, not one. The lords glanced upward nervously. Daenerys kept her hand on Jon's shoulder a moment longer than necessary. To show unity. To show control. But her fingers tightened slightly. Only he felt it. When the hall finally emptied, leaving only a few trusted advisors, the air changed. The performance was over. "You did what you promised," she said quietly. "I meant it." She nodded slowly. "But understand this," she added, her voice lower now, less queen and more warning. "If even one lord tries to raise you above me, I will not hesitate to remind them who commands the dragons." Jon met her gaze evenly. "And if fear becomes the only reason they kneel?" Her eyes flashed. "Fear is sometimes necessary. And sometimes it creates the very rebellion you're trying to avoid." Silence stretched between them. Tyrion stepped in carefully. "For now, the realm sees unity. That buys us time. Time. But time did not erase ambition, or insecurity, or whispers. As Jon left the hall, he noticed something he had not expected. Several northern men who had traveled south were watching him with pride. Not disappointment, pride. They had seen him kneel. And yet, to them, he still looked like a king. That was the danger. He had surrendered power, but he had gained something else. Respect. And respect could turn into loyalty faster than fire could spread. Outside, Rhaegal landed on a nearby tower. His eyes followed Jon as he walked across the courtyard. Drogon remained closer to Daenerys. The dragons had chosen their positions. Not apart, but not fully together either. Two flames in the same sky, holding back, for now, and somewhere deep inside, Jon felt it again. That quiet, growing fire. Not ambition, not yet, but something that refused to die. The kneeling did not end the whispers. It only changed their direction. Within days, ravens carried the news across Westeros. Some letters were sealed with loyalty, others with doubt. In taverns and castles alike, the same question spread like wildfire. If he is the rightful heir, why did he kneel? Jon felt the shift everywhere he walked. Servants bowed a little deeper. Soldiers looked at him longer than necessary. Even some of Daenerys' own men watched him with quiet curiosity. He had meant what he said. But intention did not control perception. One evening, as the sun dipped low and painted Dragonstone red, Varys requested a private conversation. Jon met him in a quiet stone corridor overlooking the sea. "The realm loves a reluctant ruler," Varys said calmly, hands folded in his sleeves. "I'm not a ruler," Jon answered. Perhaps not, but you are something the people understand. And what is that? Balance, Varys replied. You are Stark enough for the north, Targaryen enough for the south, raised away from madness, tempered by loss. Jon's expression hardened slightly. If you're trying to push me toward treason, you're wasting your time. Varys smiled faintly. I serve the realm, not crowns, and I serve the realm by standing with the queen. For now, Varys said softly. The words were gentle, but sharp. Jon stepped closer. If you're sowing doubt, I'm observing reality, Varys interrupted quietly. There are already lords who believe you would make the safer choice. Safer, that word again. Jon felt frustration rising. I bent the knee. And yet, Varys said, when you walk through the courtyard, men straighten as if you command them. Jon did not respond, because he had noticed it too. Varys lowered his voice further. You may not want the throne, but the throne may want you. Before Jon could answer, a sudden roar cut through the air. Not distant, not calm, angry. They both looked toward the courtyard. Drogon had landed hard, wings flared wide. Smoke curled thick from his nostrils. Across from him, Rhaegal stood perched on a tower, wings partially spread. They were facing each other, not attacking, but not peaceful either. Soldiers scattered below, unsure what to do. Jon moved quickly toward the courtyard. Daenerys was already there. Her face was tight with control. Drogon, she called firmly. The black dragon did not move. Rhaegal let out a low, challenging rumble. Jon stepped forward slowly. Rhaegal, he said quietly. The green dragon's head shifted toward him. Drogon's eyes flicked between them. The air was thick with tension. Two dragons, two bloodlines connected to the same ancient fire, but their loyalties were beginning to show. Call him back, Daenerys said sharply. Jon didn't look at her. He hasn't attacked. That's not the point. Rhaegal leapt from the tower, landing heavily in the courtyard opposite Drogon. Stone cracked under his weight. Flames flickered at the edges of both dragons' mouths. The soldiers were frozen. Jon felt it in his chest, not fear. Something else. A pull. Rhaegal took one step toward him. Drogon immediately spread his wings wider, protective and dominant. Daenerys stepped forward quickly, placing herself near Drogon. Jon instinctively stepped toward Rhaegal. It happened without thought, without planning, just instinct. The dragons roared at the same time. Fire burst into the sky, not aimed at each other, but upward, like a warning. The heat washed over the courtyard. Jon reached out slowly. Easy, he murmured to Rhaegal. The dragon's head lowered slightly at his voice. Drogon responded by stepping closer to Daenerys. The separation was clear now, not hostility, but alignment. Varys, watching from above, understood immediately. So did Tyrion. Daenerys felt it too. They choose, she said quietly, more to herself than anyone else. Jon finally looked at her. This isn't about choice, he said. It is, she replied. Her voice wasn't angry. It was afraid. Because dragons did not kneel. They did not follow politics. They followed blood. After several long seconds, Rhaegal slowly folded his wings. Drogon did the same. The tension eased, but it did not disappear. The message had been seen by everyone in the courtyard. There were now two centers of gravity. That night, Daenerys summoned Jon again. This time, there were no advisors, no witnesses, just the two of them in the throne chamber lit by torchlight. You see what's happening, she said quietly. Yes. If the dragons divide, the realm will follow. Jon nodded. Then what do you suggest? She asked. He hesitated, then said the one thing he had been avoiding. Let me leave. Her head snapped up. Leave? You take Rhaegal north. Focus on the real war. The dead. Let you secure the south without distraction. Her eyes narrowed. You think distance will solve this? It removes temptation. For you, she said, or for the lords. For everyone. Silence stretched between them. You would take one of my dragons, she said carefully. He's not just yours. That was the first time he had spoken so directly. The truth hung heavy. Her voice cooled. They are bound to me. And to our blood, he answered. For a long moment, neither moved. Then she stepped closer. If you leave with Rhaegal, the realm will see it as division. If I stay, they see rivalry. She searched his face again. You're running from this. I'm trying to prevent something worse. And what if I need you here? The question was softer, more personal. Jon's voice lowered too. Then ask me to stay, not as a threat, not as a rival. She stared at him. The firelight flickered between them. For the first time since the truth came out, her voice lost its edge completely. I don't want to lose this, she admitted quietly. He didn't know if she meant the throne. Or him. Maybe both. Before he could answer, another roar shook the castle. But this time it wasn't angry, it was distant, echoing from the north. Jon felt cold suddenly. Not outside, inside, he stepped toward the balcony. Far beyond the sea and land, barely visible against the dark horizon, a faint, unnatural glow pulsed in the far distance. Blue. Daenerys saw it too. The dead, she whispered. The war they had almost forgotten in the struggle for power. It was no longer approaching slowly. It was coming fast, and this time, dragons fighting each other would not save anyone. The real enemy had arrived. The blue glow on the horizon did not fade. If anything, it grew brighter as the night deepened. Jon stood frozen on the balcony, staring north. He knew that light. He had seen it reflected in dead eyes before. He had watched it move through the darkness like a cold tide swallowing everything in its path. They've broken through, he said quietly. Daenerys joined him at the edge. The wall? I don't know, but that light, that's not rumor. That's not fear. That's them. Another distant flash of icy blue lit the clouds. For a moment, both dragons outside answered with uneasy growls. Even Drogon shifted restlessly, as if sensing something unnatural in the air. Power struggles felt small now. Crowns felt meaningless. The dead did not care about bloodlines. Within the hour, the castle was alive with movement. Messengers ran. Ravens were prepared. Soldiers armed themselves, though there was nothing yet to fight. Tyrion entered the chamber quickly. Reports are coming in from the north. Village is silent. No survivors. Jon's chest tightened. How far? He asked. Faster than expected, Tyrion replied. Much faster. Daenerys' face hardened into command. Prepare the fleet. We leave at dawn. Jon turned toward her. We don't wait for dawn. She looked at him sharply. We fly, he said. The words hung heavy. Her eyes flicked toward the courtyard, where Drogon and Rhaegal rested uneasily. All three, he added. There was no hesitation in her now. Ready them. The rivalry that had been growing between them vanished in the face of something far worse. An hour later, the courtyard trembled as Drogon spread his massive wings. Rhaegal responded with equal power. The Syrian's absence felt heavier than ever, a reminder of what the Night King had already taken. Jon approached Rhaegal slowly. The green dragon lowered himself slightly, as if already accepting what was about to happen. Daenerys watched closely. This moment mattered. Jon placed a hand on Rhaegal's scales. Warm. Alive. I've never ridden before, he admitted quietly. Daenerys stepped closer. He'll know what to do. There was no jealousy in her voice now. Only urgency. Jon climbed onto Rhaegal's back carefully. The dragon shifted beneath him, but not in resistance. Drogon let out a powerful roar as Daenerys mounted. 2 riders, 2 dragons. No more question of allegiance, only survival. With a thunderous beat of wings, Drogon launched into the sky. Rhaegal followed. The ground dropped away fast. The sea became a dark blur beneath them. Jon gripped tightly at first, heart pounding. The wind tore at his clothes, at his hair, at his breath. But then something changed. Fear turned into clarity. The higher they rose, the more natural it felt, as if some forgotten part of him had been waiting for this his entire life. Rhaegal responded to small shifts in his body, to instinct, not commands. Understanding. Ahead, Drogon cut through the clouds like living fire. Daenerys glanced back once. Jon met her gaze midair. No rivalry. No crown. Just shared fire racing toward darkness. They flew through the night without stopping. The further north they went, the colder the air became. Frost began forming along Rhaegal's wings. Jon felt it biting at his face. Then he saw it, far below, an army, not marching in chaos, moving in perfect silence, a sea of the dead stretching farther than he could see, blue eyes glowing like scattered stars across a frozen field. At the center of it stood a tall figure on a pale horse, the Night King. Even from the sky, Jon felt his presence like a knife against his skin. Drogon roared and dove first, flames building in his throat. Rhaegal followed. Fire rained down onto the front lines of the undead. Flames consumed dozens instantly. But where bodies fell, more stepped forward, relentless, unstoppable. Jon guided Rhaegal lower, releasing a burst of green flame across a dense cluster. The heat was intense, but the cold beneath it felt stronger. The Night King did not move. He watched. Then slowly, deliberately, he raised one hand. The ground trembled. From beneath the snow, more hands burst upward. Fresh dead, waiting. Rhaegal roared in fury. Drogon circled back, unleashing another wave of fire. But the army kept advancing. The Night King finally looked up, directly at Jon, not at Daenerys. At him, as if recognizing something, as if sensing the blood that ran through his veins. The Night King lifted his other hand, and from the far edges of the battlefield something massive began to move. Ice cracked, snow exploded outward, then it emerged. A dragon, blue, undead, Viserion. Daenerys' scream echoed through the sky. The dead dragon spread torn wings and launched upward with terrifying speed. Drogon turned sharply to intercept. Rhaegal followed. The sky erupted into chaos. Blue flame clashed against red and green. Jon barely held on as Rhaegal twisted midair to avoid a blast of icy fire. Below, the Night King watched calmly. This was his answer. Two living dragons, one dead. Jon realized something in that moment. This was not just war. This was personal. The Night King had chosen his target, and it wasn't the queen. It was the hidden prince, the dragon raised as a wolf, the one who should not exist. Rhaegal roared fiercely and charged Viserion head-on. Fire met ice in a blinding explosion. Jon's world became heat, cold, and skies spinning violently. And as the dragons collided above the frozen battlefield, Jon understood one terrible truth. The fight for the throne had only been a distraction. The real battle was always going to be here. Fire against ice. Blood against death. And only one side would survive. The sky became a storm of fire and frost. Rhaegal slammed into Viserion with a force that shook Jon to his bones. Claws scraped against dead scales. Wings tangled. The sound was not just roaring, it was screaming. A sound that felt wrong, broken, unnatural. Jon held on as tightly as he could. Below, the undead army continued marching forward, untouched by fear, untouched by chaos. Drogon swept across them again, fire pouring down in waves. Bodies burned, cracked, collapsed. But the Night King only lifted his hand once more, and the fallen rose again. Gods, Jon muttered under his breath. Viserion twisted midair, his blue flames blasting past Rhaegal's wing. The icy fire grazed them, and Jon felt the cold slice through leather and skin. It burned differently than normal flame. It didn't scorch. It froze. Rhaegal roared in pain. Jon leaned forward instinctively. Up! Higher! The dragon obeyed. They climbed sharply into the dark sky, Viserion chasing close behind like death with wings. Below, Drogon broke away from the army and shot upward to intercept. Daenerys stood firm on his back, silver hair whipping wildly in the wind. Three dragons spiraled above the battlefield. Red fire, green fire, blue ice. The Night King did not move. He watched. Jon felt it again, that cold attention locked onto him. Not Daenerys, not Drogon. Him. As if the Night King understood something ancient, something about blood. Rhaegal spun sharply, claws slashing across Viserion's face. A piece of dead flesh tore away, revealing glowing blue beneath. But Viserion did not feel pain. He did not slow. He lunged again. This time his jaws clamped onto Rhaegal's shoulder. Rhaegal screamed. Jon nearly lost his grip. "Let go," he shouted uselessly. Drogon slammed into Viserion's side with crushing force, knocking him free. Blue fire burst wildly into the sky. For a moment, all three dragons separated. Breathing hard, circling, the wind was thick with ash and frost. Daenerys guided Drogon closer to Jon midair. "We can't hold them back forever," she shouted over the chaos. Jon glanced downward. The undead were spreading, faster than he had feared. If they broke past this line, the north would fall completely. Winterfell, the people, everything. "We end him," Jon shouted back. Her eyes flicked briefly toward the Night King below. Drogon roared as if understanding. Viserion dove again, but this time Jon did something different. Instead of retreating, he leaned forward on Rhaegal. "Down," he commanded. Rhaegal folded his wings and plunged, straight toward the Night King. Daenerys realized what he was doing instantly. "Jon," but he was already diving. The air tore at him as they dropped fast. Viserion shrieked behind them and followed. Blue flame barely missed Rhaegal's tail as they descended. Jon's heart pounded. If they killed the Night King, the army would fall. He had seen it before. White Walkers shattered when their master died. This was the only way. Closer, closer. The Night King looked up calmly. No fear, no surprise. As Rhaegal approached the ground, Jon jumped. He hit the snow hard, rolling, barely keeping his sword in his hand. Rhaegal soared back upward to avoid crashing. The Night King dismounted slowly from his pale horse. The battlefield around them seemed to slow. Even the undead hesitated. Jon stood, Longclaw gripped tightly. The cold was overwhelming now. His breath came in sharp bursts. The Night King drew his ice blade. They faced each other. Dragon blood and ancient death. Behind them, dragons screamed in the sky. Jon stepped forward first. Steel met ice with a sharp crack. The force nearly numbed his arm instantly. The Night King was stronger than any man, faster than any White Walker Jon had faced before. Their blades clashed again and again. Each strike sent frost crawling up Jon's sword. He pushed harder, anger rising, not for the throne, not for pride. For every life stolen, for every child frozen in the dark. The Night King swung wide. Jon ducked and slashed across his chest. Ice cracked slightly, a small fracture. The Night King tilted his head, almost curious. Then he struck back harder. Jon was thrown into the snow, breath not from his lungs. The Night King advanced slowly, unhurried, certain. Above them, Rhaegal and Drogon attacked Viserion together now, forcing the dead dragon back. But it wasn't enough. Jon struggled to his feet as the Night King raised his hand again. Around them, fallen bodies began to stir, fresh dead. Jon realized something terrible. Even if he killed the Night King, he might not survive to see it. The Night King lunged. Jon blocked barely in time, ice blade grinding against Valyrian steel. Frost spread up Longclaw rapidly. Jon roared and pushed back with everything he had. Not today. He drove forward suddenly, catching the Night King off balance for the first time. Their faces were inches apart, blue eyes burning, cold and endless. The Night King whispered something in a language Jon did not understand, but he felt it. It was not mockery, it was recognition. As if the Night King saw something inside him, dragon blood, ancient magic. The Night King's free hand shot forward, gripping Jon by the throat. The cold burned instantly. Jon felt life draining, fading. Above them, Rhaegal saw it. With a deafening roar, the green dragon broke away from the Syrian and dove sharply. Blue fire chased him. But Rhaegal did not stop. He crashed into the Night King with full force. The impact sent both of them flying across the snow. Jon hit the ground hard, gasping for air. The Night King rose again almost instantly, but now cracks spread visibly across his armor. Rhaegal landed protectively in front of Jon, growling low. Drogon swooped down beside them, flames blasting Viserion back temporarily. Daenerys jumped from Drogon's back and ran toward Jon. "You're bleeding," she said, grabbing his arm. "I'm fine," he lied. The Night King stepped forward once more, cracks spreading across his icy body. He raised his blade again. Jon stepped in front of Daenerys without thinking. This was no longer about politics or rivalry or crowns. This was survival. The Night King charged. Jon met him head-on. Their swords clashed one final time. And this time, Jon did not pull back. He drove Longclaw straight through the center of the Night King's chest. For a heartbeat, everything went silent. Blue light flared violently. Cracks exploded across the Night King's body. His expression did not change, but his form shattered into 1,000 pieces of ice. Across the battlefield, the undead froze mid-step, then collapsed. All at once, an entire army falling into lifeless stillness. Viserion let out one final broken scream in the sky before shattering as well. Silence, only wind. Jon dropped to one knee, exhausted. Daenerys stared across the empty battlefield. The war was over, but as she looked at Jon standing there with a sword that had ended death itself, she understood something deeply unsettling. The realm would hear of this. The man who killed the Night King, the Dragon Prince, the reluctant heir. He had bent the knee, but now he was legend. And legends were far more powerful than crowns. The battlefield stayed silent long after the dead had fallen. Snow carried the remains of shattered ice across the ground. What had once been an endless army was now nothing more than lifeless bodies scattered across frozen earth. Jon stood still, Longclaw hanging at his side. The Night King was gone, the cold presence that had haunted his dreams gone. But there was no celebration in him, only exhaustion. Daenerys walked slowly toward him through the snow. Drogon and Rhaegal circled above once before landing nearby. This time, they did not stand apart. They stood side by side. Jon looked at her. "It's done," he said quietly. She studied him in a way she never had before, not as a rival, not even as a partner, but as something larger. "You saved the world," she said. Jon shook his head. "We did." But the truth was clear to anyone who had seen it. He had faced the Night King. He had struck the final blow. And stories spread faster than ravens. By the time they returned south, the tale had already grown. The man who killed death. The Dragon Prince who shattered winter. The rightful heir who did not seek power. Every version made him bigger, more dangerous. When they landed at Dragonstone again, crowds were waiting. Word had traveled ahead of them. Soldiers knelt. Some wept openly, not for Daenerys, for him. Jon felt it immediately. The shift. Respect had become devotion. Daenerys saw it too. Her face did not show anger. But it did show something heavy. Realization. That night, the Great Hall was filled again. Lords from across the Seven Kingdoms had arrived. Many had lost family in the war. Many owed their survival to one man. Tyrion stood beside Daenerys as always. Varys watched carefully. Jon stood at her right. Not below, not above. Beside, a lord from the Reach stepped forward first. "We are alive because of him," the man said loudly. "Because of Aegon Targaryen." Murmurs of agreement spread. Daenerys remained still. Another lord spoke. "He carries Stark honor, Targaryen blood. He does not burn cities. He protects them." The words were not accusations, but they were comparisons. Jon stepped forward quickly. "Enough," he said firmly. The hall quieted instantly. "I bent the knee," he reminded them. "I meant it." A voice from the back called out, "And we respect that. But perhaps the realm needs both dragons." Jon looked at Daenerys. She held her composure perfectly. but he knew her well enough now to see the storm behind her calm eyes. He stepped forward again, louder this time. "There will be no division," he declared. "No rebellion, no second-guessing. Daenerys Targaryen is your queen." Silence followed. Then slowly, reluctantly, the hall knelt again. But this time, not with the same certainty. After the hall emptied, only a few remained. Daenerys stood alone near the throne. Jon approached carefully. "You see it," she said without turning. "Yes, they will never stop. I know." She finally looked at him. "I have dragons," she said softly, "armies, power." "And you have me," he replied. Her eyes searched his face. "And if they push you to take it?" "I won't." "And if they push you harder?" He stepped closer. "I don't want to rule alone," he said, honestly, "and I don't want to rule over ashes." The mention of ashes made her flinch slightly. He continued, "We can change it. Break the wheel like you said, not with fear, with balance." She studied him for a long moment. Then something inside her softened. Not defeated, not replaced, but understood. "You would stand with me," she said. "Always," he answered. "Not as a rival, not as a secret threat, but as a choice." Weeks later, in King's Landing, the Iron Throne room was filled for the final time. The city had surrendered peacefully after news of the Night King's fall. No wildfire, no massacre. The throne still stood, jagged and sharp. Daenerys walked toward it slowly. Jon stood beside her. The lords waited. She turned before sitting. "Power built on fear ends in blood," she said clearly. "We have seen that." Her voice echoed through the hall. "The realm will no longer belong to one dragon alone." Gasps spread. Jon felt the moment shift. "We will rule together," she declared. "Not as rivals, not as conqueror and subject, but as equal blood." Jon did not kneel. He did not step ahead. He stood beside her as she finally sat on the Iron Throne. Then she extended her hand. He took it. Two dragons, one throne, not divided, not competing, balanced. The realm did not know what to call it. Some said it was weakness, others called it wisdom. But peace followed. The North remained loyal, the South remained stable, and no cities burned. Years later, children would hear stories of the Long Night, of the Dragon Prince who killed the Night King, of the Queen who chose unity over fear. And historians would write something simple, that the world was saved not by fire alone, not by blood alone, but by choice. Jon Snow had known he was a Targaryen, but he chose to be something more, and that choice changed everything.